The Star and Shadow, its organisation is a
Star and Shadow is a volunteer-run
DIY, get involved venue. It's a community centre, really, I think.
It's not just a cinema either. Actually, we don't have enough films on.
The Star and Shadow is a building. The Star and Shadow is not a building.
a non-hierarchical organisation. There isn't a management in place.
I don't know what the Star and Shadow is. I think it's some sort of vision that doesn't quite exist for lots of people.
If I was describing the Star and Shadow to an outsider, I would say the Star and Shadow is like a melting pot of a lot of different people, not all artists. So I'm not an artist.
Something that makes me feel complicated doing like videos like this is that I feel like I should be saying that it's wonderful, like, you know, that it's an act of PR.
I had migraines and sore eyes and repetitive strain injury from typing for a full 12 months.
But the Star and Shadow isn't like that. I'm not getting paid.
Even though they're the most boring things you could ever do.
You know, and there are loads of ways in which it has a detrimental effect on my life, I would say.
But I still did it.
On the other hand, I don't really know how to articulate them in a fair way because it is a great thing.
What is a Star and Shadow? I mean, I think more than ever it is a building because it owns its building. But it's a collective of people who...
The thing with Star and Shadow is really funny because people like always come up to us who like, you know, come to people who are part of Star and Shadow and say, oh, you should do this. Oh, you should do that. And like our standard response is, no, you should. Like it's, you know, it's one of those things where the onus, like anyone can have an idea, but then the onus is on them to realize the idea, and we'll support that process. And that's pretty magical.
It's not fixed around one idea like experimental cinema or visual art or radical politics. It's just a space, and the way of engaging is the most important thing. So respectfully, with your time, with your imagination.
I love watching the space. Like you can come in the day and there'll be like meetings going on and building work or repairs and stuff, and then there'll be a like Fix It cafe or something in the afternoon, and then all of a sudden someone comes in and sets a PA up, and like between that whole arc of the day, all of a sudden you're in a club or there's a band ready to play, and that whole shift just happens in one day. And at the same time there'll be a film going on in the other room, and that's pretty amazing. It's quite amazing to watch. I quite like the transformation of it.
Very early on we made a very important commitment to making the volunteer pool as absolutely big as possible, having the core value of openness to ideas.
And then some people may drift off, but new people come in, so it's kind of this like core. But why are they so invested? Why is this core invested to keep this going?
And people say this all the time, that there's a clique and they've got secret orders, and it's not. It's just there's an intensity that goes along with working here that develops relationships in particular ways, quite intense ways sometimes.
I think you need patience in the Star and Shadow. So if you're someone that likes everything, likes to know when everything is going to happen, I don't think this is the place for you. It would drive you. It could drive you mad.
And from the outside, it looks like a mystery that you're not party to. From the inside, it's just the only easy way to get everything done. And there's a moment of translation that we can't necessarily provide people, but that with a little persistence just magically opens one day. We need to fix that probably.
But I know from experience that everything, it comes together at the end. It can be frustrating, but I'm here it took me a long time to get it took me a long time. And I think it's the build, really, the last few years of the build, that we can achieve things, and we don't have to be turning up on time to meetings and being organised in the conventional sense. There are other ways of organising yourself.
I think there are a lot of people involved who potentially find that it is the space where they can have a voice or have a, even if it's part of a collective, where they don't feel they have that in wider society, that sort of thing.
I think to have found this and to found and make it such an important aspect of my life in terms of like so integral, I think it's really kind of put a nice twist on having been really, really ill. You know, I didn't really envision anything like this in my when I was really ill and when I was trying to get better, I would never have envisioned can't even say the word, envisioned myself in this place doing the work what I'm doing, involved with the people and the friendships and commitments that I have here.
The corporate world that's out there, the sort of homogenised experience of large multinational corporations running bars, pubs, entertainment, cinemas, shopping malls, and managing your experience in a very preconceived way. And without spaces like this that don't subscribe to that, you are going to end up with a Nando's world, which is kind of, for some people, it might be all right, but maybe not for everyone.
I think the Stone Shadow is big enough and amorphous enough, and it's got so many different elements that it caters to a lot of different people.
It's weird because if you're involved in it, it doesn't feel very radical. If you talk to people about it, they see, oh, it's like another radical, unusual thing. But I know that my dad, who's a conservative, will come and have a pint and loves it. He thinks it's amazing and will happily wind Christo up behind the bar asking where the manager is just because he knows it'll wind you up. But there must be a manager. I mean, you clearly need a manager here. How will you run it?
A consensus decision-making organisation whereby generally the meeting, the volunteers as a collective will decide the direction of the organisation and its day-to-day running based on the general consensus.
That it was understood that the consensus was important in certain, like in the overall and in really big decisions, but that on an everyday getting things done, people had, individuals could get on and do things within that. And I think that's really important, and that's why it works.
We try our best, and then we send each other panicked emails and text messages, and like we pull it together somehow. Is that, yeah.
What's difficult about that is sometimes it's hard to articulate what the things are that there isn't consensus on. But for example, the consensus around volunteering, no one is, like everyone is a volunteer. That's a shared understanding.
Other organisations kind of like manage away those problems with this like hierarchy thing, in which an argument is won by an authority. Someone has authority. Okay, I get on with my job.
And when there isn't a shared understanding, it needs to be explored collectively so that there is, in order that there can be a shared idea of how to move forward.
Which can create chaos, but I think it's worth it. It's worth the experiment, and the sort of the continued existence of the Stone Shadow proves that it's an experiment that is not crap. It might even be good.
Stone Shadow is wonderful. It's like what makes Newcastle home for me. It's where I have formed some of my most important friendships, and it's also a space where I don't necessarily want to go in at the moment or whatever. Like it's all of those things. But it's just wonderful. It makes me feel so happy. It lifts my heart. I'm proud of it. I love everyone.
The drugs are taking. I'm kind of. I could ask more of these, but I'm just sort of. I think a lot of these have been discussed. But just one final thing, which is like, what kind of people I'm just wondering whether, because I started thinking about the content, so there needs to be some